انفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, everybody. So can everyone just remind us what we did last week about the sins of the tongue?
There's many sins like backbiting.
Okay, so what's backbiting?
Basically, like when you're talking bad about other people behind their back.
Right. Okay, so it could be true though.
Yeah.
Right. So there's two things. It just gives you a distinction. So Nasir, Saad, and myself, we work together. Okay. And I tell Saad, Nasir's always late. Is that backbiting or is that not backbiting? It depends. Right. So we have to be there. So I say, please call him up because he's always late. Practical thing. Please call him up because he's always late. Like, we need to leave now. We have a job together. We got to leave now. Or I say, don't employ him because he's always late. Right? Why did it? We mentioned that last week. That someone's going to invest money in something. It's like, yeah, don't do that because it's not worth it. Or bear in mind, he's asking for a raise, and we're like, should we not? Yeah, but he was always late. We would have mentioned that. So I mentioned something bad to Saad about Nasir behind his back that he wouldn't like, which is riba. It's halal in this scenario because practical thing. Call him up because he's always late, right? Okay, what if I tell Saad Nasir is Pashtun? Is that riba or not?
No, it's a fact. No.
Okay, how did it depends on how I said it. Yeah. So number one, it depends on, does Nasir mind that? Nasir doesn't care. It's like, by the way, just talking about who's from who, where are these people from this place. That's all. I just said it as a fact. And he doesn't mind. What if I said it as a fact, but I know he minds? So I know he doesn't like me saying that. Yeah, but it's true. I know, but he doesn't like you saying that, so don't say it. Or if I said it, guy's Pashtun, forget it. Guy's not going to be our team, he's Pashtun. Right? That's two things. That's racist and riba. Right? It's two things at the same time, right? So some of the things, as we're going to see today, some of the things depend on what's in your heart. Some things don't, right? What else do we have? So we had riba, we had namima as well, which is what? We didn't really do namima, but what is it? Namima is basically
instigating.
Yeah, basically mucking a relationship. Yeah. It's like, whatever. Trying to spread rumors about other people to worsen relationships with other people. Okay, that's namima. Lying, of course, right? And included in lying was lying to kids, right? But not white lies. Right? Not white lies. So when we said, actually, you're, mashallah, like this is classic manager thing. Nasir, you're our best employee ever. We should have to work on these things. It's like, really? How are you the best employee ever? It's like, it's normal, like kind of, it's not lying, but it's kind of like you're trying to correct something in somebody. And so you say something nice at the beginning. It's kind of flattery, right? That's kind of normal stuff, the way we're doing things, right? What was I going to say? But included in that was saying something you don't know to be true, right? So today I was answering a question on conspiracies, right? Everything is about the Coca-Cola company. Everything. Like the reason why we're here is the Coca-Cola company. They actually decided which Muslims were allowed in the country, which one. It's like, how did you even know that? Right? So now I tell Nasir, and Nasir tells somebody else. And it's like, well, how do you even know that's true? Right? So Nasir can say that Fareed said that the Coca-Cola company is behind every single thing, every single terrorist attack in the world. Right? You can say that I said that, but you can't say it's the case because you don't know that's true. Right? So you can't go around saying things you don't know that's true. And that's what Prophet ﷺ said. He said, if all they ever did was just repeat every single thing they said, that would be enough. That would be a sufficient sin. That would be enough for them to go to hellfire. I heard something, so I said it. Okay, well, did you know that it was true or not? I heard that taking 1 gram of calcium a day can actually increase your bone strength. Okay, who said that? Your 5-year-old little brother. Okay, is that true or not? Or some website or some advertisement. Okay, is it true or not? Okay, if you hear it from a lot of people, okay, you feel this, you're confident about it, a scientific fact that you're confident about, you can tell other people. You can say, I heard, I think. You can't say it is the case, right? And that's by a fortiori, by a better right with a hadith. The Prophet said this. How do you know the Prophet said that? Right? Is it a hadith or not a hadith? We check before you post that on. Someone quoted this hadith. Before you forward that to somebody else, check. Is it true or not? If you're not sure, don't do it. right? This happens all the time. Whoever does this dua gets this thing. Where's that dua from anyway? Where's it from? If it says the Prophet ﷺ said or the Prophet ﷺ did, check. It mentions a source, doesn't mention a source. You could ask him, by the way, where'd you get that from? Because I just want to forward it to somebody else, you know? And he's like, actually, I don't know. Right? And so check, right? Whenever we could. And so what else did we talk about? And we talk about swearing. And so the word, you guys asked about the word hela. So it's not haram, right? It's not going to be haram to use that word. Just like it's not haram to say flipping. So flipping, as we went talking the other day, that is you're using that word in place of a swear word, right? But it's not haram in itself, it's just inappropriate. It's just inappropriate. So here I have the etymology. Etymology is where a word comes, right? I Googled it. They said it's from the word hell. There's a word hellacious. Right? So you say hella good. It came in the 1980s, hella good, hella whatever, hella cool. Right? And they say it's from the word hell. But it's possible as well. It's from the word hela in Dutch, because there's a lot of Dutch. There are a lot of Dutch people here in the Bay Area. A lot of Dutch people, New Amsterdam, right? New York was originally New Amsterdam. There are a lot of Dutch people in there. So Allahu Alam. Could be for something else. Hella cool. Right? Hella in Jordanian Arabic means what's going on. Right? They say ahlan, which means welcome, but they flip it and say hella, yeah hella. Right? You say assalamu alaikum, say yeah hella. It's like, no, I said assalamu alaikum, say yeah hella. I said assalamu alaikum, you're supposed to say wa alaikum salam. And they're like, yeah, sup, you know. Alhamdulillah. Okay, khair. What else did we talk about? Lying, backbiting, using swear words. And it doesn't matter what you mean. The word means something, right? So if the word has a meaning, that's a foul word, you can't say that. And it does manifest in the dictionary, not in the dictionary, right? So I said, for example, today we're talking about vomit for the next half an hour. Like, why are you talking about vomit? Just because I like talking about it. It's haram. You can't talk about disgusting things unless there's a reason. Medical reason. I've got to clean the vomit up. Why did you say that word? Right? So even if it's not a swear word, it's disgusting. Don't talk about that. Right? You can't talk about those things. Okay, cool. We spoke about that last week. So today we want to talk about the sins of the eye and the sins of the heart, if we have time. So sins of the eye there aren't that many. Well, the main thing is looking at the opposite sex. So looking at the opposite sex with lust is haram. In fact, looking at anybody apart from your wife with lust is haram. But looked at the clock with lust is haram. Right? So you're attracted, you have a what's I don't know, something about, yeah, that's just how you are. Like you like clocks, right? So you cannot look with the clock, let alone a member of opposite sex or someone of the same sex with lust. You can't do any of these things, right? I actually had a student, poor guy, he was in madrasa, and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm attracted to my friend, and like I'm around him a lot because I live in the madrasa. Like, what do I do, right? And I'm like, yeah, like you've got to go somewhere else. It's reality. Some people are just, that's how they are. Like, what would you do, right? There's many of the ulama, subhanAllah, many of the ulama, it's not of the sunnah, but many of the ulama were not married. So we're not going to go and talk about ulama of the past and say they were like this and like that. But what if there was an alim and that's how he was? Like, he's not attracted to women, he's attracted to men. And what did he do? He just said, yeah, I'm not going to get married because I'm just not interested. And they actually mentioned, they say that if you're not interested in the opposite sex, and that you can busy yourself with something else, like for example ilm and whatever, something else, then you should do that. But if you can't, you should go and get married. So you're not interested in women at all, but you're not doing anything else. What are you doing? Playing PlayStation all day, right? Then you should go and get married anyway, right? But you know, these things, it can happen. And so there are people in the past, like, what did they do? I don't know a person, but I know a doctor told me this. A doctor said, he's a doctor, and he said, yeah, I'm treating a guy who is a pedophile, not an active pedophile, but he's a pedophile. So like, he's a real righteous guy, goes to the mosque, prays, fasts, does lots of dhikr, Quran, but he's attracted to young boys. So he knows, like, he would never have young boys in his house ever. Is that his fault? Are you sinful for what you're attracted to? So if I'm attracted to the clock, like, what's your problem, right? But you can't look at it with lust, right? You do have to take that practical means, right? And so you can't look at the opposite sex with lust, as we know the hadith, right? That don't follow one look with another look, because the first one is yours, the second one isn't. So you see, attractive woman, okay, saw her, now look the other way. Right? So for example, and practical thing, for example, yesterday, I'm playing down the street and there's as is the sunnah here, to run down the street, have a bunch of teenage girls run down the street with completely not wearing anything, hardly wearing anything, right? And so I'm playing here, and there's this girl running down the road this way. So what do? I'm playing with my kids. Go the other side. Yeah, boys, you go that side and chase here, right? So take the means to move, right? Try and do certain things to stop it, because you're going to look again, right? So try whatever you do. You can look once. You can't look a second time. Okay, I'm going to watch a Bond film. Do you know what you're going to watch? Yep. So I'm not seeing it in the adverts. I'm going to watch, what's that film called? I don't know, some film that all the adverts are there with this drop-dead gorgeous woman. It's like, well, obviously you're going to see her. So is it halal for me to sit here and watch this film? Like, no, you can't. Because you know there's sex scenes, there's the point they put the woman there to look at. She's attractive, right? And so so the only scenario you could look at a woman with lust would be is if, for example, you were a surgeon and you have to do surgery on this woman, and there's no one else to do it. You're the only person who could do it, and she's just like really, really attractive, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like, well, just deal with it, right? Otherwise, it's like you can't do that, So so you have to look. So sometimes you have to interact with people. It's like, yeah, this woman is really good looking. What do? You just keep it as brief as possible. Hi there. Yeah, great. Thank you. Just keep it as brief as possible, as cold as possible without being rude. Because one of my teachers, he's a very funny guy, Hanafi Mufti. He said, when I was at work, I used to joke like 90% of the time. I'm like the biggest joker ever. Whenever a woman would step into my office, because he was a manager, they would feel so awkward. They would give a paper to somebody else. They wouldn't give it to me. Like basically the joke. I'm just joking all the time. That it's hilarious. Ashraf is always joking. It's always funny. Bang! As soon as a woman walks in the office, silence. Cold, awkward silence. The woman would be like, "Oh my God, can somebody else give that to him?" Because he felt it weird. He said, when I was young, that's what I did. He was like 25, whatever, 30, that kind of age. He was like, just very, very, very careful. And so anyway, so it's a major issue. What is it? Practical things. A woman walking down the street. You have to look at your lower gaze, people working with, and you have to edit what you look at. You have to edit what you intentionally look at. So I'm going to watch something. What are you going to watch? Right? So for example, for me, my family, my kids and my wife, they started watching Ertugrul, right? Fantastic. I think it's a fantastic thing, right? I watched the first maybe 10 minutes. I was like, whole bunch of good looking Turkish women, not really interested, right? And so for me, I was like, yeah, I'm not really sure if this is going to be looking with lust or not. I'm just not going to do it. So I just don't do it, right? Do we watch things that there is women there? It's like, yeah, because I'm not looking with lust, right? I'm not looking with lust. It's like, I can see this woman. Yep, that's about it. But, so if you know that this, whatever program, this thing is going to have someone you're attracted to, you can't watch that. You can't just play this game. Classic, was it? You guys put it's way after you guys. Tomb Raider, right? You remember Tomb Raider?
Mm-hmm.
Lara Croft. It's like it's a game created for guys. There's a woman wearing basic nothing shooting stuff. It's like you can't play a game like that, right? So even if it's not an actual photograph of a woman, like some of the cartoons, my kids watching some cartoons, like, dude, that's a messed up cartoon. Like they're watching Iron Man or something like that, and it's like it's a cartoon, right? But it's like this scene begins with the camera going up this woman's leg. I was like, what's going on, right? It's pretty messed up. It's like this is a cartoon. Like, why did they do that, right? And so some of these things are really messed up, right? So the same thing, even if it's a cartoon, it can also be sexual, and that's what they do. They make this really weird thing. Then it's a message to boys and a message to girls is that if you want to be a cool girl, sell your body, right? And all cool girls are sexy. That's what it is. As opposed to what's the sunnah is cool is somebody who prostrates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's what it is, right? Is being attracted to somebody who is religious, etc. Right? And so this is basically these things. So you cannot intentionally go ahead and watch something like that. I was in a scenario once. I had to watch some things at school. So I asked one of my teachers. I said, "Listen, I'm gonna have to watch this thing, and like, there's all these things in it. So it was the two films you have to watch in French." And he said, "Fine, it's for educational reasons. You have to. Like, that's this particular film. You're gonna be writing an essay on this film." Right? It's something else, right? And you just have to kind of basically you can still look at something, but let's say I look away. Say this woman comes on the screen, she's there, or she's in a certain position, whatever, and it's like that's kind of sexual. You look away at that point, right? Things like that. Yeah, it was like what was it? Scooby Doo. My kids watching Scooby Doo. I don't know who's the girl with the what is it with the ginger hair?
Daphne.
And it was like, does she have to fall down like that position? Like that's really weird, right? It's like, does she have to sit like that? Like it's like it's odd. Like they put sex in every single thing because it sells. Like it sells like $1 million, right? And so it's like, Sheikh Tamimi gave a talk on this, right? It was 6 months ago. How long was it ago? 3 months ago. Yeah, about like hypersexualizing everything.
Yeah,
It's like it's just weird, right? But the thing is, why? You know, it makes money. It makes money, so that's what you do, right? And so, anyway, you can't look with lust. It applies to men and women, the same thing. And you can't look with lust, right? So the first look is yours. The second is not yours. So the first look is not your fault. You just looked, whatever. That's whatever. But the second one is you know. And this is not really a sin of the eye, but the same thing is bringing to mind certain things. So you saw and you bring to mind that same thing, bring to mind certain images, right? So it's normal as a male or female that your mind will bring to mind sexual images. That's normal because you're a sexual being. You're made to reproduce. It's normal. But you cannot entertain those ideas. You entertain, what does entertain mean? Entertain, hold in between something. Tain, like maintain or whatever. Tain means to hold something, right? So you can't hold it in your head. You can't hold those thoughts in your head. You have to push those thoughts out, right? So it comes to your head, you push it out. We mentioned this, what, a month ago, 2 months ago. The righteous person isn't the person who doesn't have bad thoughts. It's the person who, how do they react to those bad thoughts? So you have a thought, you move, but you cannot bring to mind sexual ideas or sexual things. Say, well, I'm not looking. It's in my head. No, that's also haram. You can't do that, right? It's the same kind of thing.
I said making palau in your head.
Making palau in your head. So looking at the opposite sex, or looking at someone's nakedness. So, for example, as a man, I don't know. In changing rooms in America, do people like have it like a shower, just like completely naked? That's what they do in England. It's like it's just normal. Like in a changing room in England, it's like, you know, just change like that, and who cares? Like you expect not to look, and that's about it. So anyway, there's a guy just like showering, completely naked, and he's talking to you. Like, can I turn around and see his naked body? No, I can't. You can't look at his aura. So that's not even without lust. You can't look at someone's aura without lust. You know, do they do that here in America? Yeah, it's just like. But anyway, in England, it's just considered like, I don't know. It's like, why would you care? You know, it's like as if it's a sexual thing or something like that. It's not. It's like, who cares? Like whatever, right? And so it's just kind of low culture, but that's just how it is. Anyway, so you can't look at that even without lust. Okay, a medical thing, fine. You need to, you know, is anybody going to here planning to be a doctor? Right. So you do this stuff. You sit there and you draw out all this stuff. You know, you're gonna have to draw male private parts, female private parts. You're gonna have to look at all these weird things, like draw them all out. And this is this and this is that, and whatever. Like you have to do that. It's different medical scenario, right? It's different. But for normal people, like, why would you do that, right? So looking at these things. Dissecting is different. Dissecting has major problems with it because of the hurma of Bani Adam. لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, by indeed we have honored Bani Adam. It's a sacred thing. So so dissecting is a problem in principle, right? And you try and avoid it as much as possible, right? And you can ask the muftis about that. You know? But it's in principle haram. Right? In principle, haram is a sacred being. So they mention this in when you study tayammum. So when you study tayammum, they say, what takes precedence? You drinking or making wudu? Well, making wudu. Okay, what if I'm going to die? Say, well, you make tayammum, you do dry wudu, right? You guys know about tayammum? Right? So you get dust or the earth, you make dry ablution, right? So they say, well, who counts then? Whose life is prioritized? They said any sacred life. So what do you mean by a non-sacred life? Like, is a dog sacred? Like, yeah, a dog is sacred, right? So the Shafi school, they'll tell you, if you were traveling in the desert with a dog and the dog would die, if you didn't give him water, you give the water to the dog and you make tayammum because he's sacred, right? A pig is not sacred, right? It's recommended, for example, to go and shoot wild boar. Just going to shoot them for fun, right? It's recommended to get rid of them because that stops people eating them, right? But otherwise, all animals basically are sacred, right? Animals are sacred. Humans are sacred. Non-Muslims are sacred. So what's more important? I'm with Benjamin Netanyahu in the middle of the desert, right? And who should have what? Is he? So if he's technically a kafir harbi, it's called a kafir who is fighting Muslims directly, then he's not sacred. But otherwise, most people are sacred, right? Even if he's a kafir, even if it's a prostitute, even if it's the person who, I don't know, whatever it is, unless they're sentenced to death, like you and So what was I talking about? Was sacred sanctity of life. Even a kafir is sacred. They have their body is sacred, right? So we're talking about what? Looking at people's awra. And it's worth noting as well that the relied upon position across the majority position is that men's awra is here to here, right? So you're playing football, you're playing soccer, you're playing something, navel to knee, right? That's what the Shafi school says. That's what the Hanafi school says. That's what the Hanbali school says. In the Maliki school, there's a bit of a debate, right? So in the Maliki school, they agree that your private parts are alone are what is needed to cover in prayer for the prayer to be valid. Okay? So they say that if you were to pray with your thighs exposed, your prayer will be valid. Not that you're allowed to do that, but your prayer will be valid, meaning you have prayed. Okay? So they mentioned that. The Malikis debate, what about in the street though? So they agree that your prayer will be valid if your thigh was exposed. So then you're going to read in a book that the awra in the Maliki school is just the private parts themselves. But you're mistaken because you don't know what they mean by that. That's the importance of studying madhab. When you study a madhab, you see exactly what are they talking about, right? What are they talking about? So the Malikis, they debate it. Some of the late Malikis, they said that the relied upon position in the Maliki school is that the thigh is not awra. So you could walk in the street basically wearing briefs, what do you call them, like basically boxer shorts, and expose your thighs, and you'll not be sinful. But the majority of the late Malikis, they said, no, this is awra, you can't expose that. So there is a position. So practically, you're playing football or whatever it is with somebody, and they're exposing their thigh. You don't have to make a big deal for them, but you should make a big deal about it. You yourself, you shouldn't accept that I'm going to follow one position in the Maliki school. Like, I'm not even Maliki, you know? That's not a good idea to do. Generally, if there's just one position in one madhab somewhere, you shouldn't be applying something like that. If you want to take a dispensation for something that's well known. It's well known that, for example, joining prayers, right? The Hanafi school doesn't allow it, but the Shafi school allows it when you're traveling. The Maliki school allows it when you're traveling. The Hanbali school allows it when you're traveling. It's like, it's not the end of the world, right? I even know some Hanafis that will do it now and then. But as opposed to doing something that may well exist in some madhab somewhere, it's like, why do that, right? So for yourself, personally, this is what I apply. If I see somebody else doing that, one of my teachers, I asked him about that. So we were playing soccer, and it's like, there's guys that come shorts like this, and he's like, yeah, I wouldn't play the game. I wouldn't even go. So okay, for me, I'll go and play. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it, but I wouldn't allow myself or my kids or any of my buddies to do that. Be like, guys, what are you doing? Right? Have some taqwa. That's wrong, right? When you're dealing with the guy who doesn't even pray anyway, and you're talking about something that's disagreeing, and was like, what's the big deal, right? Go ahead.
Is it like above the knee? Is it below the knee?
So it's the knee itself.
The knee.
So knee itself. So above the. So and I don't know, in the Hanafi school is the knee awra as well. In the Shafi school, it's not. So I can expose my, but it's not possible to cover the whole of your knee if you don't take the means, right? Same thing with girls, right? It's like, oh, put your hands up. Oh, your sleeve came down. It's like, in the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they hardly had enough clothes, right? People in the past, they used to rob people for clothes. It was very difficult, right? Today, it's like, none of us in this room has ever woken up in the morning saying, oh my God, how am I going to have enough clothes? It's super easy to buy hijab, easy to buy anything. It's super easy for girls, for example, to go buy something to make sure you cover your sleeve. Like, find a different jumper, find something else. It's pretty easy. So you should take the means to make sure you cover your awra. Like, there's no excuse today. It was an excuse for the Sahaba. Like, they literally, the Shafi school, they say in the Shafi school that if you pray because you're naked, it's excused. Like, if you don't have enough clothes, it's excused because it's widespread, it's common. It's a normal thing not to have enough clothes. It's very conceivable. That was conceivable and very possible for most people in the world, but not today. It's like, there's just that's qillat deen. It's not applying the deen properly, not being serious about something that's very easy, right? And so you should make sure you cover your knees, because you're gonna lift your knee up, and it's gonna get exposed. So the same thing applies to swimming. It's like, can you go to a swimming pool, a mixed swimming pool? It's like, you can go to a mixed swimming pool if you know that everybody there is going to be covering their private. Let's say, for example, yallah, for the sake of it, be as easy as going. For the sake of it, men at least covering their private parts, and no women. But it's like, dude, are you honestly telling me you're going to go swimming, you're not going to see a single woman, exposing everything? Basically, it's like, So the beach, the swimming pool, you're just like, how can you go there? Like, it's just like, you can't. It's like, it doesn't make sense. That was the sins of the eye. Sins of the eye. So sins of the eye. So looking at awrah, looking at someone at a Muslim. So you see a Muslim walking past, and you tell your friend, what an absolute ... So you swore, and you made riba, but also looking at this. Look at him, that's haram. Anything, but you look down at somebody, right? You look at somebody because he's poor. You look at somebody because he's got a cheap car. You look at someone who's an idiot. You're looking with scorn. You look down upon somebody. That's haram. You can't do that, right? And that's what the Prophet said. He said, "Don't have." There's a horrible word in German that it's so difficult to translate that we just borrowed it, put it in English, and we didn't even translate it. It's called Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is an English word that just is complete copy and paste from German, which means to be happy when somebody else is unfortunate. So I hate Saad. I have this thing with Saad. Just don't like him. I hear that, for example, his business went down. I'm like, oh man, poor guy. I'm happy at his misfortune. That's haram. That's haram. To be happy at his misfortune. Right? So the Prophet said, do not be happy at your brother's misfortune, because it may well be that Allah blesses him and tests you. Right? So you should never be like that. So you look at somebody and like, dude, what an idiot. Why is he wearing, like, who's this guy who thinks he's Afghan? Like, who's this guy? You can't, that's haram. To look at somebody like that. To look at somebody like that is haram. To look at anybody, believer or non-believer, what an idiot. You can't do that. You look at everybody. And so what was Ibn Umar? He said that he had a very strange definition of taqwa. Very, very strange definition. Taqwa means to ward off, to put a barrier between you and the hellfire. He defined taqwa is to never see yourself as above anybody else. So it's an ajib, definition, but to not see yourself above anybody else. You look at Fir'aun and you say, it's not that I'm better than Fir'aun, it's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me, and if He didn't bless me, I'd be worse than Fir'aun. So you see the blessing, Allah blessed me, and He tried this person, and that person failed. And if He tried me, I'd be worse than Fir'aun. So it's not because of me, it's not I'm amazing, it's that Allah's blessing is greater upon me. Khair. And so they mention as well that you should do sujood ash-shukr, a prostration of gratitude, if you see someone, for example, disabled, but you don't do it in front of them. For example, there's a guy who's deaf, dumb, and blind, and can't move, and smells, right? And you're like, subhanallah, Allah's blessed me with so many things, right? Yes, I'm in debt. Yes, I've got marriage problems. My mum kicked me out of the house. I've got possibly might have cancer, but at least I've actually lived all this time. I didn't have the kind of things that he has, right? And so thank you, Allah. But you don't do it in front of him because that would break his heart, right? As opposed to a fasiq, there's a guy who's a pimp and he like sells women on his Instagram page, and you do sujood in front of his face. Say, alhamdulillah, Allah didn't make me like you, right? You do it in his face as a zajr, like to turn him off, basically. Right, but you're thanking Allah. It's not about I'm better than you. You say, alhamdulillah, Allah didn't make me like you. So these are these things with the eye. What else? Looking with the eye, and then looking at something private. So my friend, he's got his phone like this, and he moves a little bit, and he's reading a message. Then I move like this. It's like he moved for a reason. Right? He moved for a reason. It's private, and now you're looking at that. Or picking at someone's phone. This is something I tell my kids. classic thing to pick up my phone, it's like, don't do that, because someone's phone is private. They're going to do that at someone's house, and the person was sending a message and they decided not to send it, and then you click send. Why'd you do that? Right, so it's private. You can't do that. And unfortunately, some people, they get too curious and they ruin their relations. There was this guy. He got married, and he asked his, before he got married, his wife said, yeah, I was in a relationship before and whatever, and she was like, fine. They got married, very, very happy, fantastic. After 2 years, he just got curious and started going into emails. Found out all these emails, and it was like, whoa, this girl, she didn't have one relationship. She had like multiple relationships, and she was also a not very good girl. She did this and did this and did this and this. All these images, all this kind of like, whoa. Couldn't. The marriage is over. So why did you do that? You married your own. You ruined your own marriage. Why did you do that? Right. So being curious, for the particular reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do not spy on other people. So you spied on someone else and you ruined a perfectly happy marriage. Alhamdulillah, she made tawbah, everything's fine, very, very happy, and you ruined it. Why? Right. So we don't do things like that. Don't spy. Okay, so that's the sins of the eye and the sins of the ear, and there's many other things as well. We mentioned these things. Now we're going to go on to some of the sins of the heart. Right. So one of the first sin of the heart is doubting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, doubting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so doubting, you have to understand, doubting can just be a passing thought, just like disdain for somebody else. Right? I just have this passing thought that Sa'ad is the worst person in the world, and it goes. Don't know where that came from, probably with shaitan. Right? It just came to my head. You just ignore that. It's just a passing thought Islam made up. Okay, well, what happened then? And it went away. The Quran's made up. The Hadith isn't preserved. The fuqaha, it's an idea comes through and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't mean anything. You just ignore it, right? And then you have factual doubts, like, yeah, how do I even know about this? How do we know about that? So I just have a question about fact, like, where is the original Quran? Where is the original Sahih Bukhari? Where is the original whatever? Where does fiqh come from? What? I just have a question. That's not sinful. You just have a question, right? And so where is it sinful is where you start playing with this question yourself and solve it yourself because you're too proud to go and ask somebody, right? It's normal to have a factual question in your head. Why is it, for example, where does the word hela come from? Factual question. Is it derived from this? Is it derived from that? Factual question. Why is this halal? Why is that? You have a question, right? But this is when you just sit there and just play with it by yourself in your head and just let it fester and become like this major thing. And then you stop praying. It's like, why didn't you go and ask somebody? فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Go and ask people who know well if you don't know. You have a question, go and ask. There is nothing hidden about Islam. In Christianity for many, many, many years, for the first 1,500 years, they banned the masses from basically accessing the holy scriptures. Only people who are the part of the church, you can read the Bible. Everybody else, no, you can't read the Bible. Big issue. Because if you read the Bible, you're going to find out it doesn't make any sense. That's not what, it doesn't say in the New Testament. Forget the Old Testament. It doesn't say in the New Testament that Jesus is God. So you go to church and they tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 1, 2, 3, 5 is not even there. Okay, is that the case with Islam? It's like hide the 6 books, Bukhari, Muslim, everything, and tell people other things. Like, dude, it's there. It's all there. Every single thing about Islam is all there. What is it like? Anything weird, anything strange, anything is all there. Every single thing is accessible. There's nothing hidden. There's no questions you're not allowed to ask. Oh, don't ask that question. Why not? Why is it that's haram? Why is it this halal? Why is it, I don't know. Why are there no sisters here? Okay, are you allowed to ask a question like that? Why are there no sisters here? Why not sisters allowed to come here? Are you allowed to ask a question? You're allowed to ask questions, right? And so you have a factual question like, why is this the case? That is not shak, right? That's not called shak. Shak is when you starting to worry about these things. In reality, if you have genuine doubt, let's say, for example, I'm a 50-50 believer. Like genuinely, I've read about Islam and just not convinced really. I'm like kind of there, kind of not. You're not actually a believer anyway. Right? So someone who has a genuine, concentrated doubt about Islam, like you genuinely not sure if Islam is true or not. You go to eat prayer because everyone else goes, but you don't, if I asked you, is Islam true or not? At the end of the day, you're like, actually, I don't know. I honestly don't like that. For my final word is I don't know, 50-50. You're not a believer anyway. That's not issue of halal, haram. It's not a believer. As opposed to, I'm a believer, I know Islam's true, but it's just like, I I don't have strength, for example, to wear the hijab. I don't have the strength to pray. I don't have the strength to like, it's not worth it. Like I don't have that much confidence in it that would stop me from doing the haram. That's something else, right? But so what is it when you have doubts? Sometimes they're just stupid and you just ignore them. Say, "Oh, the shaitan dream," just ignore them. And others like, yeah, you have a question, go and ask, and keep pushing until you get an answer. Maybe I can answer it, maybe I can't. Maybe someone else can answer something they can't. You'll find an answer because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, just as He's put angels around heaven and angels around hell, He's put men, people who've stood up and defended every single little thing about Islam, in spite of everything. So like the guys who, the ulama who wrote the 6 books, they lived what? Paradise? They lived in hell. It was continual warfare. Everywhere you go, warfare. Okay, well, how did you go travel from here to that? Yeah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me muhaddith. That's what I do. One of the muhaddithin said, I urinated blood twice seeking sacred knowledge. Meaning I got sick, messed up. Like I got messed up. Big time traveling from Khorasan to Egypt, from Egypt to Turkey, from Turkey to Mecca, to all these places. No money, no this, no that. I urinated blood twice. He said, like the guy's sick. Like it's just, that's, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes people, that makes mujahideen, and makes muhaddithin, and makes fuqaha, and makes mutakallimin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single problem in Islam has people that went and dealt with that problem, right? And there's always people around. It's gone. So there's always somebody, you have a problem, like, I don't understand from this angle, from that angle, what's going on here, what's going on there, how is it relevant? Ask, right? The shaitan will say, oh, it's okay. Trust in Allah. Believe in Allah. No, that's Christians. Sorry, I'm not pointing to you. Christians do that. Just believe in Jesus. Just feel it. Yeah. And he's trying to trick you because he's trying to get you to say, just trust in Allah. No, go on. Oh, you have a question? Go and ask it. Solve the problem. Right? Now, when is it get psychological is when this person is like every single day I have questions like this. Sheikh, I have today I have a question. I hurt myself. I have doubts about Allah, and then I end up hurting myself about it. And I was like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? This person has a psychological problem. It's not a fact problem anymore. It's like, do you believe in God? Yes, yes, yes. But then you just there's something in their head that keeps telling them it's wrong. Like someone had I have sexual thoughts about Allah. Like, why? It's weird, right? So this is like somebody who they have a mental and emotional problem. They need to go to a doctor, right? It's like somebody, you tell them, listen, you had blood on your hands and you washed it off. Your hands are clean now, but then now I have to wash it again. And then they spend 5 hours every single day washing their hand. You're not insane. You're sane, but you have a psychological problem. You need to go to a doctor, right? There's something wrong with you, right? This isn't normal. And the people, they probably have problems the rest of life. They can't leave they have to lock the car 5 times. They have to, or 20 times. Like they can't function basically. So these people are something else, And so some of the people, they just have non-stop doubts about Allah, non-stop. It's just like satanic thoughts. And it's not logical. And these people, they're not responsible, and don't worry about them. So they're like, I do believe in Allah, I don't believe in Allah, I do believe in Allah, I don't believe in Allah. I was like, well, this person is basically insane, and they need to go to a doctor, right? But the normal person is like, listen, do you have a genuine doubt or not? Yeah, I do have a genuine doubt. Okay, let's find it. And you get to the end of it, like, yeah, I don't believe in Islam. Okay, that's at least you solved it. You got to the conclusion you don't believe in Islam. Okay, at least you solved it. As opposed to the shaitan who just wants you to just sit there and have doubts and go around circles and never solve anything, and solve things in your own head, Google it, and just find stuff, and it's kind of you have your own conclusions. It doesn't work like that. So you have a question, go to the ulama. If you can't find the ulama, find them. You can find them anywhere, right? Man lam yakun, yes, was it? They say, Man lam yakun ya'lamu dhi falyas'ali. Man lam yajid mu'alliman falyarhali. Whoever doesn't know something, go and ask. If you can't find a scholar, go and find him, right? If you can't find him online, find him somewhere else. You can always find somebody, right? It's so easy today to find ulama. Right? Today I got an email from somebody. Sat's not very happy about that. I'm moving to, moving to Singapore. Why? He's like, we want you to come and teach in Singapore. So how did you find me, right? In the past, it was hard. You have to go and travel. You have to get save up, travel across mountains and whatever. Find somebody. Is this halal, haram? Alhamdulillah, you solved it for me. Right? And so the point is, you have to put in the effort. So having doubt in it's an emotional problem. You have an emotional thing. It's you don't want to go and ask a question. Go and find out. If you have doubts, go and find out. Considering oneself out of the realm of Allah's plan or beyond His mercy. I'm too bad for Allah to forgive me. Like I've done this, Allah can't forgive me. I mean, so do you believe that Allah can't forgive you? Like you can't, khalas, like it's impossible. Like Allah could not forgive someone like yourself. Okay, that's kufr. Like to believe that Allah couldn't forgive you. Okay, but I don't believe that. I just don't think Allah will forgive me because I'm so bad. That's haram. You cannot have that in your heart. That's to despair of Allah's mercy is haram. And similarly to think yourself, I'm too good, mashallah, I've got a beard, I'm a sheikh, everybody listens to me every Saturday, Allah could never punish me. I just prayed, mashallah, and mashallah, beautiful prayer, my sujood was, mashallah, better than everyone else's sujood. Allah could never punish me, right? It's haram. So it's haram to be too proud to think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala couldn't punish you. And it's haram to think I'm so bad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala couldn't punish me. Right? And again, the shaitan gets into this thing, right? Again, this question, I've committed zina so many times. Okay, fine. And then, how could Allah punish me? Right? I've done this. Shaitan comes to you, you're really bad. You should make tawbah. So it comes to you in the voice of an angel. You're really bad. You should make tawbah. He's trying to get you to despair of Allah. You're making tawbah, but he's not telling you that. He's thinking, just focus on the bad. Focus on the bad. You've done this. You've done this. You've done this. You're this. You're this. You're this. And just to build up this thing. What do we say? Allahu Akbar. So Allah's mercy is greater than our sins, and Allah's wrath is greater than our piety. Well, I've been on Hajj 20 times. So who cares? I've fed 1 million orphans. Who cares? Allah's wrath is greater than that, right? Allah's wrath is greater than that. So always between fear and hope, you have absolute hope in Allah and fear of Allah, right? And the general thing is that while you're healthy and you're not on your deathbed, is kind of 60-40, a little bit more fear than hope. Right, a little bit more fear than hope. And when you are dying, 40-60, right? Inshallah, Allah will forgive you, and you have great hope in Allah, right? And I remember that subhanAllah, my dad almost died, and I remember the sheikh was there, and he's saying, seeking forgiveness is if you make tawbah, he's telling my dad, if you make tawbah, Allah's definitely going to cure you. The reason why he was telling him that was basically he expected him to die. He said, make tawbah because you're about to die. But you don't say make tawbah because you're about to die. He said, don't worry, Allah will forgive you, and all these things happening, right? So you encourage, when someone's on a deathbed, you encourage them about the rahmah of Allah and seek, Allah will forgive you and all these things, right? That's what Imam Shafi says. Well, Imam Shafi was on his deathbed, and we have lots of poetry from Imam Shafi, but not all of it is necessarily sahih. But we have like a sahih chain transmission through, I think it was like Ibn Khuzaymah, the author of Sahih Ibn Khuzaymah, to his teacher, to Imam Shafi, that on his deathbed, he wrote these lines of poetry. He said, وَلَمَّا قَسَى قَلْبِي وَضَاقَتْ مَذَاهِبِي. So my heart became hard, and my ways of escape became narrow. Like, I'm just dying now. There's no way out. فَلَمَّا قَسَى قَلْبِي وَضَاقَتْ مَذَاهِبِي جَعَلْتُ الرَّجَاءَ مِنِّي إِلَيْكَ سُلَّمًا. I put as a bridge between me and you, Allah, hope. Right? So it says basically, if my sins are too bad, at least your mercy is too good, right? And so that's the attitude, right? Is that so labeling yourself as religious, labeling yourself as sheikh, labeling yourself as whatever. It's all, like to say in Arabic, hakifal, the empty words, hot air, right? Anybody who actually looks at themselves like that, they're not in sujood when they're in sujood. Mashallah, I'm leading Taraweeh, and here I am. I just finished the thing. I'm doing sujood, and mashallah, beautiful sujood. You're not in sujood, right? You're not in sujood. Right, sujood is I'm nothing before you, Allah, right? And so I'm nothing, and my sins are nothing, right? So my sins, it's not that I'm so bad that my sins, how am I going to get to paradise? It's that, so you don't look at sins, and you don't look at good deeds, you look at Allah. Considering oneself, considering yourself outside the realm of God's plan or beyond His mercy, considering oneself superior to other slaves of God. So I'm better than so and so. So you look and say, well, of course I'm better than him. He doesn't even pray. Of course I'm better than him. I have a Swiss passport. He doesn't have a Swiss passport. What do you mean? The guy's got an Afghani passport. The guy drives a whatever. I don't know what it is. How am I not better than this? Yeah, but these are all blessings from Allah. So you're looking at yourself. You're looking at yourself and thinking all these things around you are yours. They're not yours. They're from Allah. So you don't say you say, yeah, well, of course you're better than someone. You're taller than him, more handsome than him, more money, more intelligent, more righteous. How am I not better than him? No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you your looks, gave you your this, gave you all these things, gave you your money, gave you all these things, and he didn't give it to that person. It's not you, it's Allah. Right? And so so it's all takabbur is a major problem, right? And so what do we do? These things come to your heart, say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, right? And quickly get out of it, because you don't know what might happen. You might be driving down, you get in a nice new car, mashallah, and you have this feeling, this comes into you, and you die in that feeling. You have a car crash, right? You just graduated, mashallah, I've got this, then the other people didn't. You have something someone else doesn't have, and then you see it that it's yours, right? You see it as yours, right? And that's wrong. It's not yours. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's why we always say Allahu Akbar. Right? Allah is greater. Not me is greater. Right? And showing off. So showing off is a physical thing, because you usually do something. But showing off, riya, can also be in other ways. So for example, showing off is, mashallah, I've got my misbah. So I just want to make sure that everyone else knows that I make dhikr. Right? So I pulled that out. Why did you pull that out, Farid? What was your intention? I pulled it out just it was I pulled it out to make sure everybody else sees that I have a misbah that I make dhikr. Right? Showing off. Right? And so there's normal things like showing off, right? That's showing off, that's haram. But then worse is an act of worship in religious things, because what you're doing is you're taking something that's supposed to be purely for Allah and you're putting it somewhere else. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi that I am the most free of need of all partners in business. Right? So I'm in partner with Sa'ad in business, but I have $1 trillion. We're trying to make $2,000 out of this project. And I'm just there for the sake of it. I don't have anything else to do. I don't really care if we make money or not, because I have $3 trillion in the bank, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am all the partners in business. I got the money. So if somebody else takes my ibadah and does it for somebody else, I throw away the ibadah and the other person. It's worthless. So if someone else, if you're doing something, you're praying for that person and for Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, well, get it all lost. I don't want it. I don't need it. Allah doesn't need it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for us, not for him. For our benefit, not for his benefit. Our ibadah he gives us for our benefit. Our sincerity, if we have any, is for our benefit. If we don't, it's not. Allah's not, So this is called riya. So riya is usually defined as doing acts of worship or showing off about your religiosity. Right? So it's very dangerous, right? Because it can mean that you could do all this stuff and it's all just showing off. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And it's very, very dangerous, and it can be a big issue. It's a major issue. So riya is a big issue in your religiosity, right? The way you prayed, the way you moved, right? Someone was there, you moved in a certain way to just look as if you're a bit more religious, that you're more humble, more this, more that, whatever it is. The way you held the Quran, someone came in the room, you changed the way you sat with the Quran. Why? It's almost subconscious. It's just so normal. Riya is so normal, it's almost subconscious. Right? That's why some of the ulama, they said, whoever doesn't work on themselves their whole life to work with these things, take themselves to task, they die persisting in major sins. They have no idea what they're doing. They label themselves as religious, but every single thing they do is just riya. It's all showing off, because they're just programmed to show off. For example, my kids, it's normal for a kid to show off. Daddy, I prayed duha. MashaAllah. That's just how else do you train kids? Like, they're not in, some kids are just mashallah in the presence of Allah the whole life, but most kids, they're just like, they show off to their parents, and that's how they become good. Like, all of their good deeds is showing off to their parents. Daddy, I did this, daddy, I did that. And then it becomes second nature. But you're now reach puberty, you can't show off to your parents anymore. In fact, you can't show off to anybody. This is haram. Right? So showing off is haram, and it's a big deal. So we have showing off as in physically you did something. There's showing off as well in showing off about telling people, mashallah, last night I prayed so many rak'ahs, whatever, that's showing off as well. And there's also passive showing off. So, for example, last summer I went to Sudan and built a well, but you guys didn't know about it. Then you found out. Somehow you managed to contact the same engineer that I got to do it, and then you found out that I built a well last last summer in Sudan. I didn't, but just as an example. So I did an act of worship for Allah. My niyyah was for Allah. And then you guys found out, and then I just felt really good. Why do you feel really good for it? Don't know. No, there's a reason. You feel good that now everybody found out about that a good thing that you did. That's called that's what's it called? Like retro riya. Right? Retro riya, right? In retrospect, you're now happy that everyone has. So why that's not right. So what is it? The Prophet said one of the people who will be under Allah's shade Yawm al-Qiyamah is a person who gave with their right hand, and it was so secret that not even his left hand knew what was going on. So that's the default, right? Is that with the fard you do in front of people, alhamdulillah, I paid zakat yesterday. Aloud, everybody hears you. Alhamdulillah, I'm praying Jummah. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing this. Your sunnahs you do at home by default, right? You try and hide things. As much as possible, you try and hide things. People don't know about what you do, right? As much as possible, right? Because there's always this thing, and then you guard your heart when people find out. You're jealous about it. It's almost like your private life, like your relations with your wife. You guide it like that. Oh, someone finds out, like, imagine someone's like this. I actually got you and your wife on camera for the last 10 years. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? Hello, right? Like someone who's messed up, like you have no ghayrat. Yeah, so that's what with you and with Allah, you have the ghayrat, right? You and your Quran, you don't like people to find out that you know about this. You don't like people to know these things, right? Sometimes you have to be a bit out there and say, actually, hello, you made a mistake. For example, I make a mistake in the Quran. You're like, Farid, you made a mistake. I'm like, no. It says, Farid, I'm a hafiz. Thank you very much. I'm just letting you know. You have to do that because you're defending the truth, right? So, for example, I'm having a debate with Nasir about is this halal, haram. I'm like, bro, sorry, who's studied, who hasn't, right? But it's not about me, right? It's about me. It's like, I'm sorry, I have to stand up and say, like, and that could happen. Like, I actually, by the way, I have a PhD in Sharia. Thank you very much. And you have to slam people sometimes. Like, excuse me, you do not know what you're talking about. It's wrong. That's the deal, right? But as little as possible. Sometimes you have to do that. Like an interview. An interview. I had an interview 4 months ago for teaching Arabic. I'm like, yeah, what are you going to do? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, what did I do? I'm trying to get the job, right? So sometimes you have to show off without showing off, which is hella hard, right? As you guys would say, right? You have to do these two things, right? So what I was talking about is somebody who has this no ghayrat over like your hudur. You do not want people to know what you're like with Allah. You do not want people to know how much Quran you read. You don't want people to know how much charity. You have ghayrat like you have over your spouse. It's private. Otherwise, you obey ghayrat. You're like, where is this? Then that means there is no sir. They call it the sir, your secret with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? In Arabic, they actually call intercourse sir, secret. Right? It's called a secret. Right? It's called a secret because it's private. And so your sir with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your secret thing is private. If you put it in the open, then it's no longer private. So that person is jealous about those things. They're not like, yeah, I do this, how this is the dhikr I do. This is what it feels like. They don't like to talk about those things. Some people have to talk about things because that's their job, right? That's their job, but they don't like to talk about it, right? That's like, for example, someone who's really, really old. And then, for example, yeah, when I first got married, these are the problems I had in the bedroom with my wife. And they share things because they're old and they talk, it's like private, it's different because they're trying to solve the problem that you have, right? But otherwise, like a normal person, it's not like talking about it all the time. What's your problem? Like, you're weird. Like, you have no ghayrat. It's just like really strange. It's the same thing with, like, why do they talk about the ulama? They always talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if she's a woman. Layla. Like, it's a special relationship. It's private. You have this thing. So, riya is, you just put it all out there. Yeah, I did this, mashallah, Instagram, finish khatam, It's like, why'd you do that? Right? Why'd you do that? You do that. So that's called showing off, and it just ruins your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no privacy whatsoever. It's worthless. Right? All of these things are gone. Right? And so you're private. You don't want people to find out that you built, that you helped somebody out. You don't want this, you don't want that. It's all hidden. Right? Like there's a very, very good novel, Les Miserables. And it's about time in France, what's called during the French Revolution. So there's this guy who he's just like super wali, right? He just helps everyone out, and all in private. He manages to help all these people out, and then he wants to be buried in a place where nobody sees him at all. Like, you don't even know where the grave is. And his name is he managed to get his lawyer to fill out this thing so that nobody knows that he helped all these people out. right? This is the thing. It's like just like everything's hidden, right? This is what it's like. And the only time you should do it really is when you're trying to get a right out of somebody. So, for example, you're telling your child, so remember when I did this for you, and this for you, and this for you, and this for you. Do you actually know that I did this and this and this? Like, have some respect for your father, for their sake, to save that person from the haram. Or you're telling your wife, hello, I am your husband, by the way, and I've done this for you, and this for you, and this. We have not fed you for so many years, have not clothed you, have not done this. Remember your right towards me, because fear Allah concerning me, right? That's something else, right? But otherwise, you don't mention these things, right? And there's not a sin of the heart, but a sin of the tongue is al-man. Al-man is for example, Nasser always picks me up, and he's like, after 2 years, he asked me to pick me up once. I have my car and I can drive. So Nasser asked me to pick him up, and I say no. He's like, dude, I picked you up so many times. Why didn't you pick me up once? That's haram. You can't do that. I'm not obliged to pick you up. You pick me up for the sake of Allah. So if you tell somebody, dude, I helped you out so many times, why didn't you help me out? وَلَا تُبْطِلُوا أَعْمَالِكُمْ بِالْمَنِّ وَالْأَذَى. Do not annul your deeds by reminding somebody, dude, I helped you out when you first came. I did this for you. I did that for you. You can't do that. You did it for Allah. Don't come and ask me. Same thing with a loan. I loaned you this money. Yeah, you loaned that for Allah. That's why you're not giving interest. Right? It's for Allah. You can't remind me. You can't do that. Right? And I'm not obliged to. I'm not obliged to pick Nasr up. Because I don't want to. I'm lazy. I'm allowed to be lazy. Right? I'm free. I'm a free man. Guys, get it. You don't get your. But don't say anything. Right? And this is a very common thing. People feel like, oh my God, like I've done this for him. I've done this for him. I've done this for him. And then doesn't he do this thing? And then you mention these things. You shouldn't mention them. You did it for Allah. Keep it for Allah. Don't mention it. Right? Don't mention these things. Right. And then spite towards other people. So having a hatred towards other people in your heart, like this guy, you just don't like him, just hate him. So there's two different ways of not liking somebody. There are certain people you just don't like because I don't want to work with. I don't like the way they work. I don't like the way they talk. I don't like. There's something I just don't like them, right? And they even mentioned that it's not even a riba to say I don't like someone. If I say I tell Nasir, I love Saad as a believer, but I don't like him as a person. I just don't like his personality. It's not actually a riba, because I'm talking about myself. I personally don't like him, but I do love him as a believer. That's actually not even a riba, because as opposed to he's an idiot, he's this, he's that. You've labeled him now. But you said I don't do something towards him which is called liking. I spoke about myself, right? I personally don't like him, but I will work with him. That's fine. That's not called riba. So I dislike so and so because the way they talk is annoying. The way they work is annoying. I don't want to work with them. I don't want to do anything with them. They're an annoying person to be around. I hope, let's say for example, if we're all going to go in the car, I'm not with that person. That's just your personal thing, as opposed to I don't like them, I have a grudge against them. You cannot have grudges against people, right? It's not permissible to have grudges against people, right? If they did the haram, you hate the haram they did. If they persist in the haram, then you hate the haram that they're doing, but you don't hate them. If you took it away from them, they'll be fine. If Benjamin Netanyahu did the shahada right now, we'd all go kiss his hand. No problems. Alhamdulillah, he made tawbah, khalas, gone. Right? We don't have grudges against people. Yeah, but they did this. No, you just forgive them. Right? So you cannot have grudges against them. It's a classic thing. It's almost like it's kind of a sign of masculinity. Like you don't forgive them. Don't let go. No, the opposite. You forgive. Right? This is Islam, is we forgive. And we'll finish with one last thing, which is hasad. So hasad is a dislike and annoyance at the gifts that Allah has given to another Muslim. So again, I have this issue with Saad. When anything good happens to him, I'm very happy. When anything bad happens to him, I'm very sad. So he gets, I don't know, he buys a house. I have hasad, meaning I want the house that he has, or simply I don't want him to have the house anymore. I'm just annoyed that something good happens to him. Right? And so, and at the same time, you should protect people from hasad. You should protect people from hasad. So Saad knows that I'm like this. Saad knows that I'm like this. He doesn't come and tell me the first person, mashallah, just bought a house, paid it off, done, in cash. Just bought a house in Hollywood with cash. Because he knows that I have this problem. Now, I used to do that, Small. I remember, this happens between Tulab al-Ilm, people have hasad. right? So for Hafiz Shams, for example, he finishes the Quran, the other guy hasn't, and you can just see it, his face. So he has a problem, not yourself. But the guy over there has a problem. That's his problem. It's haram. You can't have this thing. You say, Alhamdulillah, Hafiz Shams finished. Alhamdulillah. But you as well, you shouldn't cause that, make that growing feeling in his heart. You should protect him, right? Protect him, right? Similar things is, showing off. Let's say, showing off. Somebody's a show off. Don't boost him up. So you can either rub it in, which you're increasing his hasad, or he himself is very, very proud of himself, and you say, "MashaAllah, you are the man." So he's you see this pride. He won the match. He got Islam, that guy. He's got the goal, whatever it is, and then you keep beefing him up more and more and more and more and more, right? Right. The Salaf, they used to say that if someone does that to you, put dirt in their face. Say, "MashaAllah, Freed, you're a real sheikh." Put dirt in their face. They say it again. Do it again. It's like, dude, I'm just praising you. Don't praise me in my face because you're going to ruin me, right? So you can praise people, it's fine, but if you know it's going to hurt that person, you can't do that, right? My brother, mashallah, Kamal, he's my middle brother. He without anything, a few precepts about it. My oldest brother used to help him. What did he used to do? He said, "Kamal's fat. Kamal's this. Kamal, talk about." He is overweight because he's super buff, right? But he just keep teasing him on a little, not like a little level. It wasn't like cruel, just to keep him down, keep him, because it was an issue. Because the guys that you walk in there was like, "Whoa, right? What happened?" Right? And it's like it's just so you don't you don't always know what would cause people to do it, but you have to be careful. So what is hasad then? Is something happens to somebody, and usually there's certain people. I know, for example, myself, there's like one person in the world, particular person. Whenever I hear anything good, I'd always have this feeling. So what do? Make dua for them. You make dua for them. So for example, the guy, mashallah, he's just done this. May Allah give him more, right? May Allah make him every single think of every single thing that you want in your life. You say, Allah, give him this, give him this, give him this, success, the dhikr, the righteousness, more children, more happiness, every single thing possible. Keep making dua for that person, and it gets rid of it. It'll be there. You're not responsible for that initial feeling, but you're responsible for then holding on to it, right? That feeling came into your heart. Alhamdulillah, that guy got into an accident. Haram. Stop. Make tawbah, right? But if you hold on to it, the thought came in and you hold on to it, the happiness that someone else, misfortune happened to somebody else, or the opposite, something good happened to Sa'ad, and you're like, oh, man, get it out. You push it out of your heart and say, no, astaghfirullah, may Allah give him more success, give him 2 houses, give him this, give him that, right? And we have to be careful with these things. And there's many more, there's a whole list here, inshallah, we'll continue. Maybe we'll just quickly finish, because there's one last thing. So among them also is persistence in disobedience. That's also a sin in itself and a sin of the heart. Being cheap is a sin of the heart. Bad thoughts about Allah, so have bad opinion of Allah. Allah's not gonna, Allah's gonna let me down. And about people. And so a bad thought about other people means that, for example, Sa'ad is a religious person. And religious people don't drink. So he's walking down the street with a crate of wine. What's my obligation? To just like, dude, what's that? So it's possible that Sa'ad has decided to go and get drunk. It's also possible that some random reason he has alcohol in his hand, I don't know, for some reason. Because he's a righteous person, my obligation is to have husn adhan, to assume the best of 2 possibilities, right? To assume the best of 2 possibilities, right? Sa'ad is walking into a house and there's a woman in the same door. Su adhan, oh, he's going to go and sleep with her. That's haram. It's possible, but that's haram. You can't do that. That's called su adhan. There's 2 possibilities and you assume the worst. You have to assume the best. For some random reason, he's going in that room with that lady, go in the house because he has to go and sign a contract or something like that, and assume the mahram. But I bet there's no mahram there. Where did that come from? Why did you assume that? It's possible there's no mahram and he's going to close the door and do a haram, which is being in a room with a woman by himself because maybe he's just too chicken to say something. It's possible, but he's a righteous person. Somebody who's doesn't follow the Sharia anyway, it's like not a big deal. Like someone who like is a Muslim but they go to nightclubs and you see, for example, some beer with them, is like, yeah, you're not obliged to assume that it's not beer because it's obvious. But Sa'ad, I get into the car with Sa'ad and he has a beer can there. My obligation before Allah is to have husn adhan, assume that some random reason, some random person left it there. It's not his. That's haram. It's called su adhan. And considering unimportant things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers important. What's the big thing? What's the big deal about the Quran? What's the big deal about sunnahs? What's the big deal about, I don't know, fiqh or hadith or I don't know. Not a big deal, right? So thinking things that are really important in Allah's eyes as unimportant. For example, Jannah was a big deal. I don't like cold places anymore. No, I like hot places. What's a big deal, right? So that could be kufr. Like if it's genuine, like I don't care, that's genuine kufr. But otherwise, it's like it's a big deal, right? And that was the story that you mentioned the other day about the misbah, the guy who moved the misbah with his foot or something like that. Were you telling me?
Yeah, Montamin was talking about it.
Yeah. So basically, it's like
They almost painted the.
yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is in reality something else. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats the awliya on a different level and punishes them in ways that other people aren't punished. But what was it? It's just basically like this is a thing for dhikr, so show some respect to it. Okay, what exactly do I have to do? Like, do I have to touch it like this? Do I have to kiss it? There's nothing particular, but don't show disrespect to it. So anything that's like in Damascus, the ulama, if your pen falls on the floor, they pick it up immediately because it's a pen. You write things, you write hadith with it, you write Quran with it, right? So a pen can't be on the floor, right? Food is, throwing food around is like there's something special, right? So anything that deserves respect, anything that's venerated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we venerate to it to the extent that we can, inshallah. Okay, jazakumullah khair. Any immediate questions? Okay, so قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. Right, whoever he has already succeeded, who is trying to work to purify it. There's these problems in you. It's normal, but you have to work to change it. وقد خاب من دساها. If you just let it do whatever it wants, you've already failed. Oh, that's just how I am. This is how I am in my head. No, just like you're in control of your hand, you're in control of your heart. Do something, right? And you have to take the matter into control. Inshallah, we'll continue next week. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, there's nobody on there, but okay.